let us continue to the next panel, which will focus on a very interesting subject in terms of our country. It's going to be about the acceleration of decarbonization of European islands, or Greek islands. And I will ask Ms. Alexandra Sdoukou, the General Secretary of Energy and Mineral Resources, to join me for this panel.
Τι κάνω, κάθομαι εδώ ή πάω πάνω? Α. Τώρα, να δω τι έχουμε εδώ πέρα να πω.
Μπορείς να χάσεις τη μάσκα.
Ναι. Μισό λεπτό. Okay. Shall we start? In English. I will speak in English. All right. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Andriosopoulos, everyone, hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, I liked very much the topic you chose. It's something different. I haven't seen that in previous conferences discussing about the decarbonization of European islands. And, you know, when it comes to green transition of European islands, I'm sure we all feel somehow being at home, and that's because Greece has more than 200 actually inhabited islands, from the northern Aegean to Crete, from Ionian Sea to Castellorizo. The Greek islands, I think, are our national postcard. And of course, they are also a significant source of GDP growth. Some islands have just one inhabitant. Some others, or the biggest one, has 600,000. But no matter the size of the Greek islands, I'm sure we all agree that all islands have a very significant role to play in the overall strategy of the energy transition. Before coming here, and given that I always like numbers and data, I try to collect some numbers and discuss about them. So I will give you some facts on the energy system of the islands. Greece has 29 autonomous electricity systems on the islands, the largest one being Crete. Those islands, excluding Crete, are mainly relying on, as you know, on thermal units for electrification. The total installed capacity for those islands is 800 megawatt. There are also 160 megawatt of renewables installed on those islands. Crete, for example, by itself has 690 megawatt of thermal units and 280 megawatt of renewables installed. If we want to see the big picture also in the electricity mix of the islands, the renewables share, including Crete, is 16.77%, quite low, and excluding Crete, it is as low as 11.5%. So actually, the thermal units of islands burn mainly heavy, as you know, oil and diesel. Some smaller units use gasoline. And another number that I like it is the electricity production for island emits 2.9 million tons of CO2 per year. Almost half of this is emitted from Crete. So the facts never lie, and the facts always lead to a conclusion. So the first and very important conclusion, I think, is that the island electrification is a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions. Islands today, even in Greece, they underperform in renewables. They rely on fossil fuels disproportionately because they have a significant amount of CO2 footprint, and that's because we keep on having obsolete and fossil-reliant electricity production methods. There is also a second dimension, apart from the environmental aspect, and let's talk about costs. So average fuel costs of islands, they range between 150 and 250 euro per megawatt hour, depending, of course, on fuel type and fuel cost. But also in certain smaller islands in Greece, these costs may rise as high as 1,500 to 2,000 euro per megawatt hour. So the average is 300% to 500% higher than the average cost of electricity for the mainland. As we all know, this higher cost is covered by public service obligation charges. Annually, those charges cost to the Greek consumers a total of 650 million euros approximately, depending again on fuel prices. And again, the facts don't lie. Again, there is a simple conclusion that arises. Island electrification is very expensive. And the facts always lead, I think, to the following question: what are we doing about that? So let me share with you a few thoughts on what we are doing to face these challenges. First of all, we all know, this is very well documented, the best way to address both the environmental and the cost-related issues is to interconnect the islands. So here the TSO, IPTO, is implementing, as you know, a very ambitious plan to interconnect all major island complexes by the end of the decade. 22 of the 28 autonomous island grids will be interconnected by 2030, according to the 10-year National Development Plan. You know, this is an investment plan of almost 5 billion euro. And the rest of them, those that will not be interconnected, especially in the small islands, we are going to deploy hybrid systems of renewables and storage. So those systems will make the islands autonomous and self-reliant with cleaner and cheaper energy. Third, what we try to do, we try obviously to deploy more renewables on the islands or in the vicinity of the islands. This is closely tied with interconnections, because the interconnections are actually those that are going to unlock the potential that exists for more renewables, but of course it's also associated with autonomous grids. And fourth, we try to promote, you know, a paradigm shift in energy usage in the islands. I strongly believe that electromobility can be a game changer for the islands, especially when those are combined with the abundant and cheap electricity coming from renewables, but also charging patterns, especially when these are take into account the optimization of RES production. And here, you know, we have two important showcases in Greece that show this energy transition for Greek islands. The first example, as you may have heard already, is the project that the Greek government delivered in cooperation with Volkswagen Group, this ambitious project to transform Astipalea into a green and sustainable island. So this small island is going to become a smart and green island by establishing a groundbreaking, I would say, mobility system, which is going to transform both public and private transportation based on renewable energy. This is a project that is going to run for the next 6 years. So in the long run, indeed, this island is going to become a climate neutral island. The pillars in this project, as you know, is 100% vehicle fleet electrification, the renewable energy deployment, and the development of electric vehicle infrastructure. As you know, we have in the ministry, we have set a number of incentives in order to replace conventional private vehicles with electric ones through a dedicated financing program. It's a specially designed subsidy scheme that will be the triggering point for the electrification of the vehicle fleet on the island. It offers grants to inhabitants and businesses in order to purchase vans, bicycles, motorcycles, and electric vehicles, of course. The platform, the Estipalia platform, is already live a month ago. This month, we see that there is a growing interest on behalf of people in Estipalia. Actually, yesterday I saw the first formal application, but I saw also another 35 applications being on process. At the same time, on the island, and this is our next priority at this moment at the ministry, a hybrid energy system is going to replace the power units. This project is going to be implemented in 2 phases. The first phase covers more than 50% of island's energy needs, and 100% of EV charging needs are going to be covered from this hybrid system at the first phase. And then we have the second phase, where there will be a more renewables penetration that is going to reach more than 80%. We are making the final fine-tuning, I would say, of this ministerial decision, which launches the process for the development of the hybrid RES system. So we are trying in general to pursue the milestones of the project in Estipalia, but upon the completion of the system, we expect to have a CO2 emissions reduction by 50% at the first phase and by 70% in the second phase, while the energy production costs are going to be decreased by at least 35%. Estipalia is just one island of the big picture, which is trying to make a model of sustainable development, not just at a national level, but also the European one. And the second example, and I'm going to finish with that, is a political initiative. Perhaps you might have heard this, called the Greco Islands, GR-ECO Islands. Here our goal, and allow me to say my personal challenge, I like very much this project, is to foster a comprehensive green transition to all small islands in Greece. This means renewable energy efficiency, sustainable waste and water management, zero emission mobility, the greening of tourism. I'm not going to say that this is easy. It's quite a hard task. And that's because in terms of energy parameters, there are a lot of things that we need to consider. Each island has its own particularities, the annual electricity consumption, the peak and seasonal variations, the viability of the electrical interconnections. But of course, we need to change the model of these islands and make them less dependent on fossil fuels. But on the other hand, all our islands, you know, they have a unique cultural identity. They have an architectural harmony. That's why all of them, they are iconic touristic destinations. So the difficult task here is to find the right balance. Our first station in this journey is Halki Island, in this roadmap towards making the Greco Islands green. I'm not going to say on purpose details about the Halki Islands. I will keep them for another event. But as you know, it is a partnership between state and private entities, and this is also a new model that we would like to promote, a further cooperation between the government and the private sector. I'm finishing with that. I think that it's all clear to us how the vision, at least, how we want to transform the Greek islands into something new, which is sustainable, which is a rebranding, actually, of our islands. Of course, to achieve this, we need innovative technologies. We need economically feasible solutions to get there. But of course, we need the local stakeholders on board because this is a social, at the end, project. The green transition of the islands has as a necessity the participation, the active participation of all inhabitants of the regional administration. And this is where we're working on. So I will stop here and we will have a discussion. Thank you.
So I couldn't be more happy listening that you really liked participating in this topic, which you think was the first time that HAEE was involved. But in reality, we are really engaged, quite engaged with islands, because we also participate in two European-funded projects. One is Nesoi, Nisi, and the other one is Ianos, which are really focusing on decarbonization of small islands. And Nesoi has funded 9 Greek islands in terms of making decarbonization plans and producing solutions, preparing solutions. So it's something that also last year in our last conference, the same similar panel was one of the best panels that we had. Yeah. So it was quite successful. And it's also, in my point of view, it's quite interesting, very interesting, not only for our country, because we are a country that has a lot of islands, and each island is a different concept, and there's not one solution fits all. And it's very challenging, so it's very interesting. So I think that you mentioned a huge number of topics that we could discuss, but time really pushes us. So I would say, I would start asking you something that we really listened a lot the last time, the last days, is about the new Fit for 55 package, which really poses new rules and really new stricter rules, and they come upon your National Energy Climate Plan, which is now being updated based on this Fit for 55 package. So what are your plans for renewables, focusing on islands in this updated NECP? And can we talk about solutions like offshore wind or storage or hydrogen specifically for islands?
Okay. Yeah, you're right. The new Fit for 55 package obviously increases the targets, and this means that Greece as well has to follow this path. We have, yes, indeed, we have a number of initiatives that directly involve or target Greek islands with this aim to facilitate the transition. If I can number them, let me focus on 4 of them. Obviously, we talk about renewables. And again, I will repeat that TSO has a very ambitious plan to interconnect all major island complexes within this decade. This is very important to achieve it. If we can manage to bring the time earlier, that would be much more efficient, and because then the islands will not rely, obviously, on polluting fossil fuels for electrification, but it is going to unlock the potential of installing renewables on the islands and achieving the target we have for cleaner energy. I think a good example here is Crete, to mention, because the small interconnection with Peloponnese allows, for the first time to have more renewables capacity. The large interconnection, hopefully finishing by 2024, will bring greater benefits for Crete. I think that the same will happen for all islands that will be interconnected. The TSO has made this exercise to calculate what is the available new capacity for each island once it is going to be interconnected. And I forgot to mention here, discussing about renewables, that in our new auction scheme that we have notified to the European Commission, we have asked the permit from DG Comp to allow us make dedicated auctions for formerly grid congested areas like Crete or Cyclades. So this is going to be another action on behalf of the ministry. Second, you mentioned offshore wind, and here, as you might have heard, we are at the final stages of finalizing our work. It's a work that we are preparing it for the last a lot of months, I would say. We try to make a holistic approach and try to avoid mistakes, perhaps, that were happening in the past. I strongly believe that the development of offshore in Greece will bring a lot of benefits. First, it is going to relieve, I think, the pressure of putting wind turbines on the islands. The energy mix of the island is going to change, obviously. And finally, and this is something also very important, I think that all the islands that are going to host, in a way, these offshore plants will take important benefits. And it's not only, the ανταποδοτικό, the percentage that goes to the community. It's not just, we should not see it on this just narrow-minded way. There are several other benefits when you host a wind farm in the area. Thirdly, it's hydrogen. And I want to point here, I think that there are strong synergies between offshore and hydrogen. And of course, we're taking into consideration on that when we are planning for, on the one hand, for the offshore framework, and on the other hand, for our hydrogen strategy. Yesterday, I had a discussion with some members from the National Hydrogen Committee, and I was very glad to hear from them that they are trying to identify, let's say, a pilot project of having a hydrogen island. I'm not going to say more information on that, but I liked the notion of having a hydrogen island based on several criteria. For example, the assessment of power production capacity, the island's demand, and several others. Those factors, of course, will be taken into consideration into choosing a suitable island and test this technology. And fourth is the storage, which is, again, an important aspect. Again, as you know, we are passionately waiting from the European Commission this comfort letter, or its decision. And following this decision from DG Comp, we are ready, I would say, to launch a tender process in the first semester of 2022, where our aim is to establish storage systems in starting from the non-interconnected islands. And in parallel with this, as you might have known, we have notified to the European Commission a dedicated subsidy scheme for storage infrastructure under the RRF umbrella. We are in discussions with DG Comp at this stage to reply to their questions. Again, the aim, and this is a political priority, I would say, for the next year, for the next 2 years, to complete investment, to start the investments through the subsidy scheme.
I think that you presented a complete and quite holistic approach for the islands, which contains a lot of technical solutions which are there, but we just need to see them implemented. And as time is running out, one major question is practically social acceptance. It's something that you might have seen in Halki and also in Astypalia. And I would like to ask, what is your perception, how the people there look upon renewables and this greenification of their islands, etc., because bigger problems coming from Crete, for example, because over there, as previous panel mentioned, everybody is opposed to renewables, large wind parks, etc., that will be something that will have to come after the big grid that is coming to Crete. So one cable is there, and the second one is coming, and at that point, social acceptance is a major issue. So what's your opinion on that? And I think that would be the last question because the ambassadors are waiting.
You're absolutely right. I think if there is one challenge to face, talking about... yes, if there is one challenge to face is the social acceptance, particularly when speaking about the Greek islands, because the Greek islands can be perfect, I think, real-life laboratories. They can showcase, on a small scale, what we want to do on this greater picture, the European level. Islands can indeed, they can introduce new technologies there. They can adopt new energy production and consumption models. They can test innovative solutions, but you cannot materialize all these if you don't have with you local society. And we should never forget that when designing, policies and projects at a governmental level, we can do that if we don't have partners in this process, local people. I was surprised when talking about the Astypalia or the Halki project, when visiting the islands, that there was an enthusiasm, I would say, a support from the mayor and from stakeholders of the islands. But there, we need to be in constant consultation and discussion with them. We have to be very honest with them. Besides, what we are doing and designing, it's for the benefit of the people who are living there.
I think that you mentioned the correct word is honesty and openness, because when you talk to people who don't really understand technologies, because technology for them is a black box, so you need to be honest with them, to make them understand what's going on and what they are going to get as a benefit.
What they will gain from that.
Yes, and make them understand that it's not something that will really keep them away from their habits of what they have been living up to that time. Because, there are a lot of interests, most of the times, that are opposed to renewables, because it's a huge discussion that we're having today. What's going to happen with expansion in renewables, especially in the islands. And I think these kind of lighthouse projects, which are lighthouse projects, small projects that really will be operating all the time and provide examples that are real-life examples in Greece. So a major issue is the public acceptance. And one other issue which is quite crucial is funding. So the first thing is that they accept it, and the second thing, who is going to pay for that? Because, we need electromobility. I know that you are the woman behind all the electromobility plan of Greece. But, funding is a major question for those people. So what about funding of these projects?
here, allow me to say that the money is there. It's up to us how quickly we can absorb them and how quickly we can implement all these projects we have in our mind. So the mission at the ministries is to unlock this public financing. And hello, Ambassador, welcome. On the one hand, unlocking the public financing, on the other hand, encouraging private sector to invest in these projects. Our task at the ministry is to utilize all the financial tools. And for this case, we have the tools there. First, as you know, we have the Recovery and Resilience Facility. Again, I will repeat that we have 38% of the financing going to green transition and the green pillar. 6.2 in particular are targeted for green. Then we have the second pillar, which is the next partnership agreement for 2027. Again, in this case, we have allocated for them. Third, we have the European Just Transition Fund. And here, allow me to say that the committee that was involved for the Just Transition mechanism made a fantastic work to negotiate with European partners and include in this mechanism also the islands. So taking advantage of the funding for North and South Aegean Islands and also Crete included. And last but not least, we have the Island Decarbonization Fund. Again, it was a gift coming from the sky. Again, here, Greece is entitled to have 25 million free CO2 allowances. So this is an amount of money almost more than 1 billion. That's why I'm confident saying that money is here, but it's up to us to be quite effective on and quick on what we are doing.
Okay, thank you very much. We will just close by booking you for next year's conference for the same panel.
To see where we are next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.